Hey everyone, it's Allison. I just wanted to jump on here and do a little video because I have a deck haul. This is my first ever deck haul. Given how many decks I'm amassing, that's actually probably a bad idea. But I had an opportunity to buy some books, some decks from someone on Facebook who was getting rid of them at a really reasonable price. So I got a lot. um, but all with good reason, I think. So none of these are going to be too surprising, I don't think, and some of them I actually already had, but occasionally I get backup copies of things if A, the price is really right, or B, if I just really love the deck. So yeah, I guess I'll go through, well, maybe I'll do oracles first, because we all know my problems with oracles and how I'm not really into oracle cards. Um, but she was selling for a really reasonable price pristine copies of Soul Cards 1 and Soul Cards 2. I probably don't need to show, well, maybe I'll show Soul Cards 2 because I've so often shown Soul Cards 1. It's a bit of a tongue twister. I love Soul Cards. I love that they have no borders. I love that they have no keywords. I think they're really super intuitive. And oh, I think the cardstock on 2 might be a bit thinner than 1, actually. Interesting. Because I had 1 out earlier. But what I decided to do, so I had Soul Cards 1 before, and I just hadn't had a chance to get Soul Cards 2. And I decided to take one of my copies of Soul Cards 1 to work with me, because I teach a writing class. And while I don't really talk about my interest in tarot or oracle in my job at all, I think these are really great for, grab one. You can talk about how spread them all out and then say, which of these cards do you think best represents an element of Hamlet? What element, what scene, why? Those kinds of things, or as like writing prompts. And just for that, just for inspiration. The other thing that's really good for that actually is Dixit cards. I use Dixit cards. If you guys don't know the board game Dixit, I'm looking around. Do I have it to hand? I don't. But maybe I'll do a separate Dixit video. It's a board game. It's like Apples to Apples, if you know Apples to Apples, except for instead of matching phrases, you match images. And there's like 6 or 7 expansion packs of beautiful, big, surreal, adorable, sometimes spooky images. And sometimes I'll use that game in my class, either to talk about symbolism, what images can symbolize, and it's great. And although you can really only play the game with 6 people unless they're going to play in teams. But you can also just have a big stack of Dixit cards and say, do the same thing, spread them out. And how on the first day of school, I was like, if you had to pick a card to represent how you're feeling on the first day of school, what would it be and why? And then they're looking for elements in the cards and how to explain them and put those ideas into words. So that's great. So Soul Cards 1 and 2. So I've got an extra Soul Cards 1 that's going to my class. And then that will just sit here for me. The only bummer about it is I kind of wish, oh yeah, I feel like Soul Card, well, maybe not. Maybe I'm being ridiculous about that cardstock. But I kind of wish they were the same color so I could mix them, but who cares? I can mix them anyway. Okay, forget that. Complaint solved. Yeah, it's fine. It's all fine. I love them. They're so pretty. And they were really inexpensive. I'm so happy to have them. And then the other Oracle deck I got, I sort of have been looking at this one for a long time. And I wasn't going to get it unless it was a great price. And it was a great price. A, because I don't really like oracles, and B, because even the artwork style doesn't actually really turn my crank. But I love Halloween so much. That when I saw this one for really cheap, I was like, gotta do it. I would, well, actually, I'm gonna just save that card because it's one of my favorites. I actually had a little look through here. I'm not really in the mood for it at the moment. I really am very season focused in everything I do. Like, I only want white wine in the summer and red wine in the winter, and everything to me has to do with the seasons. Like, I don't I don't love photorealism, so I was like, meh. But I like the meanings in the little book. The book is quite good, actually. So I thought this was just going to be a piece of fluff that was just fun things to look at, but um, there's no, it's not so bad. But I love the ones that are less. I love the ones without people, with all these just sort of traditional Halloween images. Um, and there's a little key phrase there if you don't want to look in the book, but the book's really worth it. I was impressed with that. They're pretty shiny, which I don't love. But some of them, some of the images I adore. So let's find the adoring images. Like, could there be something more folly and Halloweeny than Barmbrack, which I love. But again, they're going to be all the ones with jack-o'-lanterns, or a lot of them. Oh, that one I quite like, actually, the trick-or-treat one. Again, pumpkins, but mischief and play, and with a scary mask on there. Again, nature, animals. Oh, that one's really pretty. And there's lots more nice ones here. But this I love. And again, I feel like I say the same thing in every video. I love winter things. For me, there's a very short window. So Halloween, October 31st, and then November 1st to 11th. November 11th is Remembrance Day in Canada. So that is a sort of quiet time of reflection, and I think that's very important to focus on that. And then November 11th is Remembrance Day, and then November 12th is Christmas for me. And I just love to, I always feel like I never get enough Christmas in because I get busy and then I put off decorating and I put off doing things. And so this is one of my New Year's resolutions, was to start Christmas November 12th this year and to not feel like I'm going to run out of Christmas spirit and just love it. Sorry, that one's really cool. Ancestors, the DNA strand in the tree. The owl, again, animals, and, oh, yeah, that's enough, except for Black Cat, because that looks just like my cat, who has bombed a couple of my videos. If you go back, you'll see that she comes in to mess with me while I'm doing videos. So those are the oracles. And again, I think the Halloween one is going to be simply October. And I have lots of Halloween decks, and I'm acquiring them like crazy, it seems. So I'll do a big one of that when, again, the season is right. But that one, I don't know how much I'll use it, but for the price, I was like, yay, because I do love those images. And then the decks. So I did get a second copy of the Pagan Otherworlds Tarot. This is actually a first edition, as I can tell from the seal here. And honestly, I was like, again, the opportunity here is too good to pass up. Because I love this deck and it is so expensive to order from the States. The shipping on it alone is like 35 Canadian dollars by the time it gets up here, and the deck is not a cheap one. Not to say it isn't worth it. I mean, all of these images are so beautiful. As you can see, I haven't even shuffled it yet. So I have been using, I think I'm going to leave this one because it's a first edition, even though as far as I can tell, there are no differences at all except for the seal. But I'll leave this one as my backup and then continue to use my second edition. But I mean, lots of people know this deck. Let me just, I really love the minors. I love the pippiness of it with the extra illustration that really helps you to understand it. Where's my two of swords? Beautiful. I love it. Let's get a nice little winter scene. So yeah, I'm pretty excited to have another copy of that for less than half it would cost me. I don't buy backup decks. The only other deck I have a backup of, well, actually, now I've got a couple more backup decks. But before this one, the only deck I had a backup of was the Wild Unknown. I bought a first edition. It's so funny. I bought it in this art shop in Toronto. I think it had just come out. There was no book yet for it. or they weren't selling a book with it anyway. It was like a totally separate thing, and I do love it. And then again, I found another copy secondhand in beautiful condition. It's a first edition, um, and I was like, well, the price is so right that I want to have another first edition. Although I've heard from lots of people they like the mass market one better because it's easier to shuffle. I don't know, that deck is just so special to me. So anyway, now I've got duplicates of that and this. And then the other one I now have a duplicate of. It didn't have a box. It came in this little bag for $5. And they gave me this cute little bag. Come on. It's the Morgan Greer. And I love this deck in perfect condition with the title card. And again, too, she clearly put all these in order. This deck is so beautiful. I love the richness of the colors. Sometimes at the beginning of my journey with this deck, the close-ups of the people sort of messed me up a little bit. But now I feel like I know the cards well enough to be able to go through it. Oh, I love that strength card. Oh, and I love the Hermit. Now, immediately when I picked it up, I was like, this deck feels small to me. Is that possible? Because I do have a Morgan Greer that I bought for $2.99 at a Value Village in this really banged up box. It's really falling apart. Some kid has, or somebody has written on it, and there's even ink stains on a couple of the cards. And I was like, oh, well, I didn't think there were any differences between the Morgan Greer editions. But you can really tell. Actually, let me find in this one the why do I look for one card when I should just pick? Okay, I'm gonna look for my Hermit. Is he at the very end? No, usually my Hermits are at the very end. My little shy Hermits. Just to show you the difference in color. And I'm not sure if that's because of the printing of this one or because of the age of the deck, because I don't have any idea how old it is either. I know people go really into scholarship, oh, here he is, about, which rider weight is which and how you can tell the difference. But I don't know if anybody's done that someone has for the Morgan Greer, but I haven't been able to find out the information. So look at the color difference. So this is the newer, I think, edition. And here's the older edition. So a real difference in saturation there, which is fine. Like, I don't mind faded cards. You can also tell, so the Hermit, of course, is one of the ones that has an ink stain on it. But you can also sort of tell that the backing is different. Not only is the placement of the stars different, because it looks like maybe this one's just an upside down version, but it's not because they're both right side up. But also, this one is like, I don't know, denim, like acid washed or something. Let me see if I've got another example that doesn't have ink on it. Like, it's more sort of mottled and different. I think the earliest editions, the stars were all in different, like a different pattern on every card, and it's not that. So it can't be the oldest edition. But the other thing I noticed is that, here, maybe I'll do it like this so you can see better. They're not the same size. The newer one is smaller by a little bit. Like, it's so funny because I thought, I hadn't used my Morgan Greer in a while, and I was like, oh, whatever. But as soon as I had it in my hands, I was like, this deck's smaller, which is fine, but I like the larger size better. But for $5, you can't go wrong with an extra Morgan Greer. So now I don't know whether to use this as my primary Morgan Greer and keep the older one for a backup. I think maybe I will. I like the bigger ones. I like the idea that it's older. But it's just such a beautiful deck. It's so great. I know that Jen from Jen's Balanced Tarot really agrees with me on this deck, our Morgan Greer love. And finally, now I couldn't believe this. $20. Where'd I put it? Oh, here it is, under all my detritus from my shitting. I need to be better organized. World Spirit Tarot. Oh my God. I have a Spanish version of this one that I like fine. And I always sort of had a hankering because it came with a Spanish book, and I always wanted to read the book. And actually, while I can muddle my way through some Spanish, but this was so specific that I really struggled. It's like when I was learning Spanish, I was like, oh, I know what I'll do. I've read the Harry Potter books in English, so I'll get them in Spanish. But there's a lot of really specific vocabulary in those books. Like you have to know wand and owl and howler. Like, oh, the only thing I really did like was in Spanish, Mad Eye Moody is ojo loco, which is the greatest. So anyway, I couldn't believe it because this deck can go for upwards of $100 on eBay easily and quickly. Now, and the seller was so great. She was very forthcoming. The deck is trimmed, which I'm not sure it's a decision I would have made. And then it's also edged, which is fine. And then she wrote the titles on it because she had trimmed them off. So again, I didn't ever think this was a deck that needed trimming. I'll show you. There's actually an extra magician card in here. There's actually a couple extra cards in here, like the art cards. So that's what they look like untrimmed, which I think is actually fine. They might actually be trimmed a little bit now that I look at them. Yeah, they maybe had an extra border lopped off. I can't remember well enough if it's the same as my Spanish edition or not. But it turns out they look great trimmed, and she has way better handwriting than I do. So I'm very happy to have her version. It's small, and I don't like small decks. We've all heard me talk about it. I don't like small decks, but it's also nice and wide, so it feels chunkier. It doesn't feel teeny, which I don't like. And then there are the cards. Oh, sorry, I'm not going to do that, or I'm going to drop them. So like 9 of Wands. So again, she's just written the number on. And I think it looks very pretty, actually, trimmed, and it doesn't ruin the back to be trimmed. And I do really like the Spanish version doesn't have the hourglasses, and I quite like the hourglasses. And this is a good thing too. So she wrote the sage on there. Can you see on the top? It's a pretty 6 of Cups. Lots of different ethnicities, lots of different body types in this deck. Really lush artwork. Oh God, that card slays me. Like being outside in the cold, and oh God, so powerful. Tower. So I didn't probably need the titles written on a lot of them. They're pretty faithful. Oh my God, I could just leave them all day. But I don't care. She did a great job. They feel beautiful. I'm super, super happy to have it. And I'm really happy to have the guidebook finally in a language where I'm not like looking up every other word to try and figure it out. So I really feel like I lucked into this deck. Modifications at all, I'm super happy. And I think they'll look really great out in a spread. So yeah, that's the world's. Oh, I guess we have to talk about this. Every deck has to have one. Well, that's not one terrible card, but boy, oh boy, this one, like the sun. And in later editions, actually, this was changed to a different sun card. But then it doesn't have the hourglass backs. But man, Richard Nixon on his lotus flower, like just honestly, got a widow's peak, crying out loud. I don't like that one. Okay, but let's finish on a beautiful note. Oh, look at that moon. Look at that moon. So it's a gorgeous, gorgeous deck, and I'm really happy. So I had a tarot haul. It feels really extravagant to have this many decks come in at once, except that I do feel justified in that they were all really reasonably priced, and she was a delight to deal with and just really great. I haven't done a lot of trading on Facebook. I have decks I'd like to trade away, but I don't know how really. Like I don't know how to figure out the postage, and I'm a real noob. Anyway, but I feel like I participated in a trade. Yay! Not even a trade. I bought them, so it wasn't that hard. So yeah, I'm not gonna have a lot of haul videos because that's just I don't buy a lot at once. I can't, or my house will be overrun. But this is my first one, and I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll talk to you soon.